welcome back to Around the SEC, the show where everything just means more. I'm Micah Farmer.
And I'm Jaden Nichols.
It was another great week of SEC football, a lot of ranked matchups once again, and let's start off with the big one, LSU traveling into Aggieland, into Kyle Field to take on A&M, and at the start of this one, A&M kind of looked out of sorts. LSU got off to a lead early, but A&M was able to come back, take a 38-23 win. What did you see from the Aggies in this one?
The Aggies, Marcel Reed led the show.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, all their touchdowns were on the ground, which, I mean, you typically see teams, get some on the air, some on the ground, but they got all on the ground, so I was kind of shocked about that. But he had three himself.
Yeah.
And that whole team just looked dominant. Their whole crowd was into it. They had a great time.
They did indeed, and Garrett Nussmeier coming into this one was a guy that I felt could really elevate LSU and started off well at the two first half touchdowns, but then three interceptions, two of them thrown right at B.J. Mays, never what you want to do if you're the LSU quarterback. But like you mentioned with Marcel Reed, A&M's offense is really struggling under Connor Wegman. Marcel Reed comes in and says, "This is my show now," and takes over the game. 4 successive touchdown drives. You mentioned the rushing ability. LSU's defense just could not contain him, whether it be through the air or on the ground. He moved the ball effectively both ways. So I was really impressed with him. But after this, now A&M is the only team that's undefeated in SEC play. What do you think their ceiling is going forward?
I think that they still have a little more room to go, honestly. They showed out, as you can see. They had, I think LSU had, Texas A&M had 10 times as many rushing yards.
Yeah.
You can't allow that in SEC play.
No, it's going to be a real struggle to contain that attack moving forward. I would love to see an A&M Georgia matchup in Atlanta at the end of the year. I think that would be a great game, but still got a ways to go before we get there. And let's talk about another team that is trying to get to Atlanta right now, the Texas Longhorns. They traveled up to Nashville. It's been upset city this year. Alabama experienced it earlier in the year, but Vandy unable to get it done in that game, going down to the Longhorns 27-24. What do you think was the key to get Texas over the top in this one?
I think it was just the defense. That one interception late in the game from Pavia really sealed the deal for them. I'm honestly kind of proud of Vanderbilt. They held the number 5 team Texas to a pretty close game the entire time, and pretty much no SEC or not just SEC, no top 25 team wants to see Vanderbilt because they're going to hold anybody to any close game. Because typically you would expect it's a blowout, but not this year.
No, definitely not. And Vandy obviously came into this game ranked as well, number 25. And before I talk about this game, the fact that Missouri stayed ranked after what happened to them versus Alabama and Vanderbilt drops out does not make any sense to me. I cannot wait for the playoff rankings because the AP poll is horrendous right now. But as far as the game itself, you mentioned the late game interception from Pavia. I think if that doesn't happen, Vandy stands a really good chance to win. But you know what they say, ifs and buts all day, but it's really what happens in the game you have to take stock of. Eli Stowers, another good game. Junior Sherrill for Vanderbilt played well, but the Texas offense continues to kind of sputter a little bit. Quinn Ewers with these mistakes every week. It feels like he shows flashes of brilliance every game and then flashes of, Quinn, what are you doing a lot of the time if you're a Texas fan. And you have to get that worked out if you want to compete with the teams like Georgia. You saw them lose to Georgia. If you want a rematch with them in Atlanta and you want to be able to get revenge, you need to improve the play at the quarterback position. And no, that is not Arch Manning. Stick with Ewers. He's your guy. Just let him develop. Let him keep going. Then our final game of the recap here, we mentioned a little bit. Alabama, they hosted Missouri and obliterated them 34-0. This is an Alabama team that had a lot of questions coming into this game after the loss to Tennessee. How do you think they rebounded in this one?
I think Bama looked Saban-esque, so to speak. Back in Saban days, which was just last year, I know. But
the ye old days of Saban a whole 1 year ago.
But they will always shut out opponents, and they did that here tonight. That game as well. They only allowed 72 yards as a team on the ground or in the air. If
you do that, you're going to win an SEC game a lot of the time. Brady Cook, obviously injured. Drew Pine comes in, throws 3 picks. Not a great game for him. I don't know how much you know about quarterback play, but usually if you throw 0 touchdowns and 3 picks, you're not going to win the game unless you're SMU. But this is not around the ACC, so we won't touch on that.
Yeah.
34-0 win, though, for Alabama. You mentioned it, Saban-esque. One thing I loved in this game, Missouri driving down the field late. Kane Womack goes, put the first-team defense back out there. We are not allowing a point. And they don't. And that's the thing. Going for the kill like that is something that Alabama needs. You need more of this kind of hard-nosed. We're not going to let you get anything football, and I think that's how you reach this team's potential.
Mm-hmm.
Bounce-back game for Jalen Milroe. I know he didn't have a touchdown through the air, did have one on the ground. The Alabama rushing attack looked really solid in this one, and that's the key to this offense is that rushing attack, whether it be with Jam Miller and the running backs or Jalen Milroe. You've got to get them going. Then my favorite thing from this game was the receiver, Jeremy Bernard.
Yes.
Really stepping up Jeremy Bernard, and it's been Ryan Williams all season. Ryan Williams. He's still, stop me if you've heard this before, he's only 17, but a guy that young, you can't expect to lead your receiving core, and I think giving Jeremy Bernard his opportunity and to really step up and be that experienced leader you thought you were getting from Washington is a big deal. But that is it for our recap this week. Let's go into our winners and losers from the past week of SEC football. So, Jaden, who is your winner?
Well, we're not quite technically shifting subjects. Sticking with Bama for my winner. I mean, shutting out your opponent, like I said, Saban-esque team. Drew Pine had a horrible game against that defense. And I honestly would say they're going to go pretty far in the playoffs as long as they play the way they did against Missouri.
Yeah, I think if they can make it to the playoffs and you see this version of Alabama, no one wants to see that team. I completely agree. And Drew Pine looking like Notre Dame Drew Pine out there. It was a rough game for the backup QB. Got our quote-unquote producer, Vince Wolfram, in the studio upset with that comment there. But my winner of the week is Texas A&M. They had a great game versus LSU. This is one of my favorite teams in the country right now. I love the Aggies. I love Marcel Reed. Cannot talk enough about Marcel Reed. The true freshman looks incredibly poised. I loved his post-game interview. Really cool, calm, and collected. Great interview from him. Great play. Has a rocket arm, super fast, is a nightmare to defend, and this A&M defense is just as much of a nightmare to go up against. They are stingy, so A&M is my winner of the week. Now, on the other side, who is your loser?
LSU. And your quarterback is top 10 in passing yards per game. He had 400 that game, and you guys come up 15 short. I'm not blaming him at all. I'm more so blaming the defense because you can't allow 200-something rushing yards as on the ground and then expect yourself to win,
Yeah, I completely agree. It's an inability to make adjustments from LSU. You've got to be able to adapt to Marcel Reed. I know it's mid-game, but you have to make changes, and they just couldn't. So I like that pick. My loser is Missouri because I think their season died in Tuscaloosa this weekend. They came into the year as one of the teams that I think had a shot to win the SEC. I tried to be fun and pick them to win the SEC. That's gone well. They have been an unmitigated disaster so far this season. Brady Cook doesn't look like himself, then he gets hurt. Eli Drinkwitz talking to Alabama players saying, well, we would win if my quarterback was in. Shut up. What are you doing? You don't need to be chirping players like that. Get your team figured out and play football. And Missouri can't do that this season. They struggled with Auburn, and if you're struggling with Auburn this year at home, yikes. Yeah. So Missouri, I think they're absolutely cooked. They are done. They are my loser of the week. Now, let's talk about the Heisman Trophy a little bit. This has been a conversation that's been dominated by Ashton Jeanty of Boise State, Cam Ward of Miami, and Colorado's Travis Hunter. But this being around the SEC, we wanted to talk about if there are any SEC players that could find their way to the Heisman by the end of the year. So, do you think there's anyone from this conference that has a shot at the trophy?
Yes, and I will say Quinn Ewers. He had a couple interceptions, I know that. But overall, looking at his season, he's dominated. He's led the team to a numerous amount of wins. Yeah, they had hiccups with Georgia. But I think they've bounced back, and they'll continue to get better and hope make their way into the playoffs, too.
At this point, I agree that Ewers is the league's best shot. I think Texas would have to win out from here and win out convincingly, especially the revenge against Georgia. That would be huge. Going into this weekend, my top SEC Heisman contender was Garrett Nussmeier. He had been playing really well for LSU, but that game there, the interceptions in the second half, I think that's going to kill his case. And I think if we're speaking realistically, I don't see an SEC Heisman winner this year. If I were giving the award out right now, it would be Ashton Jeanty all day, every day. Travis Hunter is obviously a ridiculous player, what he can do on both sides of the ball. Cam Ward playing hero ball a ton down at Miami, but I think what Jeanty is doing is just unreal in the modern era of college football. And I think as far as the SEC, the best numbers guy is probably Jackson Dart at Ole Miss, but Ole Miss has also beat up a ton of bad teams and struggled versus the good teams they've played, so I wouldn't give it to him. And then if you look at running backs in the SEC, the top one right now, it's Jarquez Hunter, Dylan Sampson right up there, and I don't think either of those guys are on a good enough team to win the Heisman this season with Tennessee's recent struggles and Auburn.
Yeah,
Auburn.
Not
Yeah.
much else to say.
So, no SEC Heisman winner for this year, in my opinion. Let's move on to our picks for Week 10, and let's start off with the world's largest outdoor cocktail party down in Jacksonville. It was just announced that over the next couple of years, this game will be moved to Atlanta and Tampa as renovations go on Jacksonville Stadium, which, why not make it a home and home? I don't get that, but for now, still in Jacksonville, Florida versus Georgia. Who do you got?
Georgia.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't really say I'll meet anybody who would say Florida here. Georgia is
No, just kidding.
Georgia's a great team. They're going to dominate. They've done so far, and I don't see that changing here now.
Yeah, I don't either. I love my Gators, but Kirby Smart hates Florida as much as I love them. So I don't think there's any chance that the Gators stun the Bulldogs here. I think Florida keeps it competitive for a half because of the athleticism and the skill of Jaden Ball, DJ Lagway, the true freshman on this offense. But the Georgia defense is just too good in this game. Georgia is by far the better team still at this point. So as much as it hurts to say, give me the Bulldogs. Next up, number 10 now, Texas A&M cracked the top 10. They will be traveling to Columbia, South Carolina to take on the South Carolina Gamecocks. You think the Gamecocks have an upset in them, or do you think A&M keeps rolling?
I think A&M keeps rolling. They just had an amazing game, and I think they're gonna, I'm not saying it's gonna be like a blowout or anything. They'll keep it competitive. It should be a good game, but I'm expecting Texas A&M to handle business.
Yeah, I'm taking A&M as well. This offense, I think South Carolina isn't quite ready to defend. South Carolina is in their element when the teams they face are pass-heavy offenses where Kyle Kennard and Dylan Stewart can both get after the quarterback off the edge. A&M is more run the ball through your face, especially with Marcel Reed at quarterback, and I don't think South Carolina is well set up to defend that. So give me the Aggies in that one. Then Kentucky, after a blowout loss to Auburn, again, yikes, travels to Rocky Top to take on number 7 Tennessee. And who do you have in this one, and why is it not Kentucky?
Tennessee has dominated all season long, and outside of their loss to Arkansas, of course. But I also don't see that changing here. And Tennessee is looking to move their win streak to 3. And yes, geographically, Kentucky is on top. But Tennessee is winning this one.
Yeah, I love that. Definitely agree with it. Tennessee is the far better team. If Kentucky gave up, 280-something yards to Jarquez Hunter in that game, what is Dylan Sampson going to do to them? It's going to be a disaster, I think, for the Wildcats, and I think Tennessee big in this one. But the way this year's gone, Kentucky by 20. I don't know. Still give me Tennessee. Our next to last game here is the somehow still ranked number 19 Ole Miss Rebels traveling to Arkansas to take on the Hogs. Who do you have there?
I have Ole Miss. Arkansas is 2-2 at home. Not the worst, but could be better. And I just don't – Jackson Dart, he's a great player, and I think he'll handle business. The receivers look good, running backs look good. Be competitive, be a good game for Ole Miss.
This is my SEC trap game of the week. It didn't work last time I did it with Arkansas when LSU came to town, but give me the Razorbacks this week. Taylon Green is 3rd in the conference in passing yards. JaQuindon Jackson is 5th in rushing yards, though still has a little bit of a banged-up ankle. And then Andrew Armstrong is 2nd in the conference in receiving yards. This is a quietly scary offense, and the defense is also solid with Landon Jackson off the edge. I think Ole Miss is going to be in trouble up here in Fayetteville, so give me Arkansas to pull off the upset. Then finally, the one everyone has been waiting for, the Vanderbilt Commodores traveling to Jordan-Hare Stadium to take on the Auburn Tigers. Who comes out on top?
I'm going to stick with my people. I'm going to say Auburn. My gut is telling me to say otherwise. I'm speaking through my heart right now. I'm going to say Auburn. I'm hoping that these doctors do not, perform surgery on our football team like I think they will, but I'm pulling for Auburn here.
Yeah, listen, we're here at Auburn. We're at Auburn. Auburn's favored. It's on the Plains. Give me the Commodores. I think Vanderbilt comes in. We've seen what this Auburn team is like versus Diego Pavia before with the loss to New Mexico State. I think he's going to keep rolling in Jordan-Hare Stadium. I don't think Auburn has athletic enough linebackers or big enough DBs to defend tight end Eli Stowers. I think he has a big game this weekend. And then the Vanderbilt defense, I think, has been quietly good against the run all season long. And I think if they slow down Jarquez Hunter, the Auburn offense isn't going to be able to move the ball. So give me the Commodores to take this one.
It'll be a good game, though. We hadn't been
here
in a month. And I'm pretty sure that crowd's going to be amped up.
Yes.
as long as it's a close game, I think we'll all be super loud. I know I'll be super loud. And it'll be a great time. I'll say that.
See if the Jordan-Hare Magic can come in clutch once again for the Auburn Tigers. But that is it for Around the SEC this week. Thank you all for tuning in, and we will be back next week for Week 11.